Good morning, everybody. Welcome to November 22nd's team call. Andrew and Jeff here, and it's nice to see everybody's faces, including brand new baby Locke. Well, I guess like almost month-old baby Locke, huh? And Amber looks freezing, apparently.
She's getting her windows replaced.
Oh, so it's really cold in your house. That's funny, and that's a cute little baby. Oh my gosh. Hey, does anybody have any other recommendations for high blood pressure besides marjoram and ylang ylang?
Didn't you do that emotional stuff?
That too. Yep. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you.
You can always refer to your Essential Life book to find the solution to that.
That is very true. I know the Essential Life says to like put balance on the bottoms of your feet. I've been doing these because a friend of ours who's a skilled healer, she recommended those. Huh, good. Well, let's get started, shall we? Oh, Amber says new windows are coming in and it's snowing.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry. That's really funny. Okay. So today we have a really cool topic. For those of you that are tuning into the recording, and those of you that are live, everyone's going to want a piece of paper, take some notes, okay? And then you're also going to want some emotional release oils. So if you don't have those handy, grab them really fast. So, and I'll introduce our topic as we're getting going. So you saw on the graphic that we're going to talk about some powerful and really practical techniques to shift from a space of like anxiousness and fear into confidence and certainty. And we're going to be doing exercises from a book called The Sedona Method. Have you guys heard of this book? The Sedona Method? Okay, so a few people have. The Sedona Method was written by a guy named Hale Dwoskin, for those of you that don't know. And it's really interesting. If you remember the way that Jeffrey and I teach the levels of being, you know, where you start with with intention, and then the next level is your core beliefs, and outside of that is your desires are a product of your core beliefs. The Sedona Method focuses on your desires, and basically it addresses 4 wants of the ego, of the egoic self, of the egoic mind. And he said he showed how those 4 wants are the desires that keep you stuck in your ego. And so I want to, before we get too deep here, I just want to paint some really like real life scenarios of when this would be applicable. So do you remember times in a relationship where you felt really stuck because you couldn't see eye to eye? Like no matter how much you talked about it, how much you argued, like you wanted the other person to see things the way you saw things and they didn't. And do you remember that feeling of like wanting to control the other person? So that's an example of egoic wanting, and the wanting is what keeps you stuck. Another real life example is, do you remember a time in your doTERRA business where you are excited to share with somebody and at the same time you're super nervous? And your brain's thinking about, like, well, what if they think that I'm just trying to sell them something? Or, what if the oils don't work and so then they don't like me? And or whatever, what if they say no and I feel rejected? You remember times of, when you felt that? So that's another form of egoic wanting. And the wanting is what keeps you stuck. And now before we dig into the exercises, and we're actually going to elaborate to help you understand more what the wanting is. But we were reading, Jeff was listening to a Marianne Williamson book this morning, and she shared a really cool quote from the Course in Miracles about how you can either have blank or you can have a miracle.
You can have a grievance or you can have a miracle.
A grievance or you can have a miracle. And I thought that was really interesting. So we talk in our team about how like you have the right to summon miracles, right? And miracles only exist in a space of love. And what we're going to be talking about today on our call is everything that is not love, basically, in terms of desires, what you desire in your heart. And the ego, it's not your heart. The ego is your brain, right, and your programming. But the ego very much has powerful wants. And as long as you're stuck in the egoic wanting, those egoic desires, you don't exist in love. I mean, like, let's take that doTERRA example. So you're, you know, part of you excited to share, and you're thinking, oh, she could totally use these high blood pressure oils, right? And, or, I mean, these healthy blood pressure oils. But you also have that egoic wanting, the fear of rejection, wanting their approval, wanting to not be rejected, right? And that is not love, because love is, there are no bounds for love. Love is just unfolding, it's giving. And when you're coming only from love, your only thoughts, hi Soren, your only thoughts are, how can I serve? How can I bring value to the other person? And if they don't accept it, well, that's okay, because love is unconditional. It's only serving. It's not, you know, what's in it for me kind of thing. Does that make sense, you guys? And so in relationships, this is not just doTERRA, so you know, but you can apply this to doTERRA and it will be so powerful. This book it came into my awareness years ago back when I did door-to-door alarm sales, and some random person whose door I knocked on, it came up in our conversation, and she told me how it was a book that changed her life, and her fiance was reading it too. And so I got it, and I didn't read it for 2 years. And it's one of those books where you read it and you're like, why the F didn't I read this before? So I'm sorry, why the heck didn't I read this before? And because it's so profound and life-changing.
Andrew, what's the name of the book?
The Sedona Method. And I'll type the name in the comments here because it's really weird, of the author, Hale Dwoskin. The Sedona Method. There you go. Let's see. Kathleen says, how do you share love without people thinking you have ulterior motives because they know you sell doTERRA? That's going to be relevant to our conversation today. Good question. Hold tight, Kathleen, because that's coming. Yeah, I love that question. So do you want to just introduce the 4 wants of the ego?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember them all from the Sedona method. So I know there's want for control, want for separation.
Second is want for approval.
Want for approval.
Then security.
And separation.
Yeah. So you should probably just write these down just so you know, because it'll come in really handy.
So want for control, want for approval, want for security, and then want for separation.
I'm typing these for you guys too. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics. Number 1, why we are using the word want. Do you feel confident explaining like the wanting and how it means you're always in lack?
Yeah, well, wanting insinuates a lack by wanting. There's a difference between want and desires. Desires are, and really it's just a matter of vernacular. So you may hear these words used in other ways that may not insinuate what we mean. But to us, what we've come to understand they mean in this context is wanting is insinuating that there is a lack, or that there's not enough, there's not enough to go around, or there's not enough for you, or you don't have. Whereas desire is coming from a space of just choosing that first part of your experience, without the rigid definition of I don't have it now, and so I want it so I can have it one day. It's more of it's not a part of my experience, and I desire to bring it into my experience. So they may look the same on the surface, right? Like you have or you don't have, but it's a more energetic presence, a more full feeling. You're desiring from a space of love because you're worth it, as opposed to wanting from a space of not enough for me, not enough to go around. Maybe I'm not worthy of this. I want it real bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the scarcity that we're talking about, the want for these 4 things. You know what scarcity feels like, right? Like what Catherine's talking about. If I want to share, and I've had this happen several times where I've wanted to share oils with someone, but I was worried that they think I had ulterior motives. And that's very much wanting their approval. And for me, wanting security and safety, because I feel unsafe if people have a different, thought or opinion about me. Does that make sense? And so it's the scarcity that I feel. It's like that black hole that's in your chest that kind of sucks energy, and it's like sucking life force out of, your experience. And this is kind of a deep thing that we're talking about here, you guys. If you have questions, pause and say, what the heck does that mean? Okay. But does the word want make sense?
As defined by the context that we're using it in.
Okay.
It does.
Okay, good. So the next thing is, let's talk about these 4 things. Let's see. Kathleen says, self-love to think you deserve it. And deserving, even in Western culture, we use the word deserving as if it's a bad thing. Like, oh, she thinks she deserves, all that. But when we talk about deserving, we mean that you're worthy of miracles. You're worthy of happiness. You're worthy of joy. You're worthy of prosperity. You're worthy of being free.
We typically think of the word deserve as above anyone else, like a need greater than anyone else's. I deserve this.
You mean Western culture?
That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. And so, again, in this realm of vernacular, the way that what that vocabulary means to us is just that you are worthy of it. So is everybody else. Mm-hmm. But to say that I deserve happiness, I don't mean that as in my need and suffering is greater than anyone else's, so I especially deserve it. I just mean I'm worthy of it just as much as anyone else is. So to say I deserve happiness in our vernacular does not exclude it from anyone else. Everyone else deserves happiness too. Just claiming my power. I deserve happiness.
Yeah, A Course in Miracles says all of God's children are special and none of God's children are special, right? So let's talk about these 4 wants. Want for control. This is your want to influence people. Your want to be right. Your want to have people subservient to you. So if you have subtle narcissistic tendencies, which are something that I actually work through, your ego is really good at keeping people just a little bit crazy so that they're always having to come to you for something. Okay. It's wanting people to see things your way. Okay. Wanting to exert dominion over other people. It can be anywhere from when you're in a heated discussion and you really want, or even an intense discussion that's not loud or shouting, but you really need someone to know to get your point of view. It can go from that all the way to physical violence because you have that much want for control that you hit someone to make them do what you want to do or whatever, right?
And it can be really subtle and really subconscious. I mean, these wants typically are very subtle and very subconscious, and you don't even realize that you're demonstrating behavior that would indicate that you have this want.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, actually, because the depth that these wants exist at, you guys, just so you know, it's going to take some digging to figure out where they exist because they are buried so deeply. In fact, I'm going to pull up this screenshot really fast of the levels of being and show you just how deep these wants exist. But we'll go through the 4 first before I pull up the graphic. So want for approval. You want to walk us through that?
Yeah. So want for approval is wanting other people to like you.
Wanting love.
Wanting love. And again, these all sound like good things, right? Well, of course I want people to like me. And of course I want love. And of course I want happiness. But again, approval. So seeking somebody else's approval of you. And the thing to remember is that we exist independent of anybody else's opinion. So it doesn't matter if, so-and-so hates you, because who you are and who you can be and who you can show up as doesn't matter.
It's not affected by someone's opinion.
It's not affected by someone's opinion. Now you look on the surface and you say, well, they could go talk to this person and that person and that person and that person and say all these terrible things about me, and now more people think horrible things of me. Well, karmically, what I've seen demonstrated, because I think Andrew and I have both been in situations where we've found out that there have been people that have really strong opinions against us. And when we've been able to let that go and stand in the knowing that we're showing up to do, to be, very different from how that person is portraying us, it's been actually really funny to see, as we felt more and more confident in who we are, we get more and more external validation, which again isn't important because it doesn't matter what others think of us. But it's kind of funny to see, I've now had 5 people tell me this week that they had an interaction with so-and-so who said such terrible things about me. And they're like, I just couldn't believe it. And it didn't make sense to you. I know you. But Kathleen, I wanted to address your question. So how do I share love without people thinking you have alternative motives because they know you sell doTERRA? And when you can really stand in that knowing and not desiring for their approval, it may be that person will think that way, regardless of how you show up.
But in most cases, people will show up differently because you're showing up differently.
True. So the point is that if you can really stand in that knowing that you are showing up in a space of love and to help them get what they really need and to help them get the solutions that will really benefit them, then it doesn't matter. They'll either choose to buy or they won't. And you have to remember, it's important to remember that that is their own limiting beliefs and stuff that they're working through and not a reflection of you. Now, whenever I hear anything about anyone, I always pause and I say, how could that be true in my life? Because it doesn't hurt to ask the question, right? If someone calls me a terrible name or says something really bad about me, it doesn't hurt for me to pause and say, how could that be true in their reality? And then adjust the way that I show up to ensure that, nobody's getting that impression. At the same time, not worrying about someone having that impression, again, giving it some thought, because maybe an apology is necessary or whatever. But having the self-reflection and the awareness to say, how could that be true for me? And then deciding, is it really something I need to address? Or am I already addressing it? Have I already moved on? Do I need to go back and give an apology? Did they misinterpret me? And moving right along.
So knowing every person on this call, just as you learn these things, your ego is going to activate safeguards that are built in to make sure that you stay the same. Okay, the ego's sole function is self-preservation, and we all have egos. So, like that example, Kathleen, that's a great one, since most of us have experienced that, where we're worried that where we want approval, right? And as you're learning a technique that's going to help you release the want for approval, your ego is going to throw a fit, because your ego wants to self-preserve and not become irrelevant. Okay. So, and the exercises that we'll do in a few minutes, they're very just practical. So, the third one is want for security / safety / survival. Okay. And the reason why.
Can I say something first about what Jeff said to Kathleen, since we're on
Sure.
the subject? Okay. So I noticed this in my work. It's really interesting because most of the people who come to me for appointments, they are already using doTERRA. And so because what I'm doing with my work is, I know when I'm working, I'm in a place of love for the people. And most of the time I know that they already are using oils, because I ask them, do you use oils? Because that comes up with almost every person I work with. And what I found that's so interesting is the people who already are using the oils, and so I don't need to kind of switch over, and maybe switch over is the wrong word. This is something I'm working through, but switch over to that place of becoming a salesperson besides what I'm doing for them. When I just come in from that place that all I'm there for is to help them, I just say, okay, you need this and this and this oil. Is that, can you get those? You need to start taking them right away and for this long. And it's so easy because I'm not coming from the salesperson part. Mm-hmm. And so that's, anyways, maybe that's something we can address later. But I just notice how easy it is, because I'm in that place of love in those particular situations.
Corey, I think that's a really good self-awareness realization that you just had too, is that, you realize that if they're not part of your team or they already have an account somewhere, it's easy for you to give them the recommendations that will be helpful for them. But that if there is an opportunity to sell or have someone sign up, that all of a sudden it makes you feel salesperson-y. And, I think that's a really good awareness that perhaps there's some things that could be, that you get to work through, right? Which you acknowledged.
Yeah, that's the wanting
great.
Kicks in.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that and being vulnerable.
Yep. So the third one is wanting security. This feels like, it's anytime you're feeling unsafe, or like things are changing too much and you don't like change, okay? Or not wanting to try new things. The want for, and I want you to understand, the want is in a sense silly. Because let's take, for example, let me give you some real life examples. In this slice of existence, which is already gone because it's going so fast, right? But in this exact slice of existence, are you safe? Right? I mean, everyone nod your head because everything is perfect, right?
I mean, Amber's really cold, but she's still alive, right?
Yeah,
like she's
secure.
Yeah.
Let's say that tomorrow you have to go sign bankruptcy papers, okay? Even though your ego, your mind, is racing about predicting your doom and the awful future that's ahead of you, and what everyone's going to think about you at church when they find out you went bankrupt, and how you're going to lose everything and all that. Like, in this slice of existence, are you safe? Yeah. And this is actually the only thing that's real, because the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist. The only thing that actually exists is right now, which is already gone. Now there's a new slice. Now it's gone. Now there's a new slice. Does that make sense to you? And in every slice of existence, you're safe. Let's say that tomorrow you are going to die of cancer, okay? And the doctor told you, you're for sure going to die on Wednesday. Sorry, whoever, okay? In this slice of time, are you secure? Even up to the second before you die, in that slice of time, are you secure? Does that make sense to you? And the wanting for security is really the only thing that's not actually safe, ironically. Even if you're going to die in 5 minutes of cancer, like in this slice of time, you're still secure, okay? So
mindfulness, exactly. So I want to address this because I feel an egoic response coming up and saying, no, that's not true. What if you're buried in credit card debt or have all these bills that are due tomorrow? You're not safe. Well, actually, we are, because the point here is that we're letting go of the worry. We just saw a movie. We saw the Harry Potter movie that just came out. Really great. We'd recommend it. And one of the main characters says in there, why worry? I think you're just suffering twice. That's what I think of. If you worry, you're just suffering twice. So the point here is that if there's a real concern or a real thing happening, by removing the worry, the want, and instead just addressing actions that we can do to be prepared for it and make steps for it and move on through it. So if we get diagnosed with cancer and told we have 3 days to live, we don't just sit there and go, it's okay. I'm safe. Maybe you do. Maybe that's what's good for you is you just meditate for the next 3 days. Or maybe you go out and have wild adventures or eat the food that you've not been supposed to eating because it's going to kill you. Now it doesn't matter, but the point is that in those moments for you to want safety or want things to be different than they actually are, it's robbing you of your mindfulness and it's robbing you of the presence of mind to deliberately create and do what you can to create a better experience for yourself.
It's keeping you in an illusory reality. It's keeping you in the projected future or the resentment of the past, right? But neither of which actually exists. They're both illusion. The only thing that's real that actually exists is this slice of existence. So the last want is want for separation. And this looks like this is one of the trickiest things because the ego so totally believes that you're separate from other people and other things. Like Tara's crap is her crap and my crap is my crap. So she can go deal with her crap, right? Instead of believing in the unity of all life and the unity of all existence. From a quantum physics level, we know that everything is energy, and modern day quantum physics teaches that all energy is connected. So even I'm this mass of cells and Amber's that mass of cells in another state, right? And it totally looks, on the surface that like we're actually separate beings. We know that even from a purely energetic level at the fundament of what our physical matter is made of, we're the same stuff. And the existence is so complex and intertwined that it's impossible for us to be separate and for her stuff to be her stuff and my stuff to be my stuff. That's why compassion is so powerful, because I know that while maybe Tara might make a poor decision that really affects her negatively, and that was the choice that she made, it's not separate from me. And that's why my compassion is so powerful for her, because we're all united. Now, the way that want for separation looks, it looks like this. You get in an argument with someone and you say, I can't talk to you right now, and you storm off. That feeling is the want for separation. Or you're telling someone about the drama that's going on in your life, and like nobody understands what I'm going through. Do you see that feeling, the want for separation? You think that you're different than everybody. You think that your problems are above everybody else, or that no one knows what you're experiencing. Or the want for separation could be that you judge somebody, right? Maybe I hate Cassie's hair, and so I don't want to be around somebody that has that kind of hair, right? Or you judge somebody for a choice they make. Maybe somebody on this call chooses to vaccinate their children, and I super disagree with that, and so I don't want to be around someone like that. Do you see the want for separation? And the wanting the separation is what keeps you separate from your ability to connect with the rest of your existence, which is everything. And you're literally cutting yourself off from miracles, from people who could, miracles that could show up in the form of people, miracles that could show up in the form of unanticipated experiences that you're walling yourself off from. That's currently my struggle. Yeah, it's a really common one, Tara. So I'm going to do a screen share really
Hey,
fast.
real quick, I just want to address that want for separation
Yeah.
because I think it's important to delineate when that shows up in a healthy way as well. So asking for space from someone when you need it is totally fine, and asking for a moment to calm down or have peace. It's the standing in your position and feeling I am so alone. Nobody else can relate to me. Nobody knows what I'm going through.
Or I will not tolerate this.
I will not tolerate this from somebody else. I will not be around that person because they're negative. There's a balance there to remember. So I choose to surround myself with certain kinds of people and not with others. But the point is that when we are around those people, we're not constantly focusing and thinking on how much we dislike them or judge them or ultimately we're judging them, and hold them in a certain space where they're away from us. Again, you be very proactive. You design and construct your life in a healthy way so that you can spend your time around people that are edifying to you. Also acknowledging that people that are going through challenges and hardships, they're not separate from you. You don't have to go and spend all of your time with the negative Nancy in your life, but you could acknowledge and wake up and maybe include her in some of your meditations or your prayers or whatever your spiritual practice is, and send a blessing or a positive energy to Nancy every now and then, recognizing Nancy is part of our collective humanity, not that negative Nancy, if she would just die and disappear, then man, the whole world would be a better place, but acknowledging that she's part of our collective experience and you're part of that too. And so anywhere you can send her love and peace and blessings, and also cut any negative cords that are attached, so that that's really sucking you into creating part of your experience as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it's okay to be in an argument and to ask for space. It's sitting there in the argument and insisting that nobody can relate to you. Again,
this is why we're so different. Or this is why we're at an impasse.
Yeah, this is it's acknowledging the healthy boundaries of having some quietness for the ego to come down or to elevate, to get back into your higher self, so you can come back and connect. But again, that separation is recognizing that we're all a part of this collective humanity.
Kimberly learns a lot during traffic. Yeah, because in traffic, you totally want to be separate. Like, that dummy, why did he do that, right?
Yeah, and what's so funny is I was driving with my mom the other day, and it's just traffic, doesn't matter what time of day, and we're sitting there going, oh my God, there are so many people in this world. What are they all doing now? And then I turned to my mom and I said, I bet the guy right next to me is saying the exact same thing as us, And
Yep.
so it's so funny. It's like right at that moment when you realize that, it's like, okay, they're in the same boat I am. And so just chill out. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
But also like what you were saying with how we're like all interdependent and all interconnected with each other. With traffic too, it's like you're stuck in the middle of traffic, but it's because of something that happened to someone that could be a mile away, and you're stuck because they had an accident. So in the same sense, if somebody is suffering, it's going to trickle down to you in one way or another.
Yeah, totally. And you can wall yourself off. What Jeff is describing is healthy boundaries versus want for separation. Want for separation is what Kimberly's describing, where you're like, you're ticked off because of the traffic and why is everybody out here, right? And a healthy boundary is always in the service of love. So, even, this is really shallow, you guys, but I might say, yeah, I'm going to leave for the meeting at 3 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock because I'm not going to sit in that stupid traffic. Want for separation, the resistance. You can feel the resistance. Versus healthy boundary would be, I'm going to leave for an hour earlier because I just would rather get there earlier than have to be in traffic. Do you see that there's no resistance, but I made a very similar choice?
So you guys, the result can look the same. It can. So another example that we had was we were in China recently in this big long line of people. And as we're sitting there, Andrew and I are just connecting to, hey, we're all in this line together. Everyone is late for their flights. Everyone wants, and we actually weren't. So maybe it was easy for us to feel that way because of that. But we're like, we're all in this together. Nobody wants to be in this line here. And I watched some people really freak out. In fact, a fight almost erupted there were guards around, I'm sure these people would have been imprisoned in China for like 5 years. It really, I mean, it really got really tense. Some really intense name calling. It didn't get physically violent, but it almost did. There were lots of hand gestures, and I'm thinking to myself, how could this have been addressed differently if they all held themselves in a space of love? You know, they could have maybe expressed their needs or communicated their objectives a little more clearly. Again, the point of all this is that we can always have and get the same end result. It's the method of how we went and got there. If you go through life really angry and violent, then you're going to show up with lots of, you know, things that are showing up in your body. You're falling apart, you have disease, because you're so out of alignment with your natural being, your natural presence of love. Whereas if you can come at these things with a really clear head and remembering everyone's humanity, then it's easier for you to make decisions and help you get what you want, while remembering everyone else is a part of this experience and they're all deserving of what they want too.
So that connecting to your being, that's what we're actually talking about here. I'm going to show you a little graphic here, and we're not going to go through all this in detail because this is a lot of stuff. But see how at this level, desires, do you see that? That's way under the hood of what most people are conscious of. Most people are conscious of their stories on the very outside, their explanation of why things are the way they are, right? Well, of course I was really irritated. There was awful traffic and I was late for my work meeting. And the kids were screaming in the background. That's their story, right? And the experience was that legitimately there were children screaming in the car and there was a lot of traffic. The action is that they were, honking at people and, raising their fist, and their emotion was frustration and anger and impatience. And their thoughts were, this is so stupid. I shouldn't be in this traffic. Why the heck didn't I leave earlier, right? And their desire is want for separation and want for control. Want to control traffic, which you cannot, and want to be separate from all the other cars that are in your way. Does that make sense? We're just honing in on this little slice here. And again, it can be tricky because it's so deep and it's below most people's consciousness, but you are all very brilliant, wise, conscious people. When you release the wanting, and this is a very important word, because the exercises we're doing today, it's not about controlling or shaping the desires or fixing it. It's about releasing it. And what exists in the absence of those egoic wants is what the true self desires. And the true self desires something very simple. The true self desires to be the witness of beauty unfolding, of God unfolding, of love unfolding. The true self, that's the only thing that you really desire. And an easy example is this. Do you remember the last time you went and visited a brand new baby that was born in the hospital? In our family, we just got to do it 2 days ago when our little sister had her first baby.
Last night.
Last night, right? Okay. And do you remember any wanting, any egoic wanting, where there's not enough, or you have to fix something, you have to, influence something? What did you experience? What desire did you experience in the moment with that newborn?
It was connecting to just how pure and precious she is, how pure and precious her spirit is.
Right. All you do is you just want to see there and be the witness of that beauty that is there. And there's nothing that you have to do or fix or be separate from, right? Or adjust so that you can be safe. It's incredible. And that's a really good example of what it, and squishy. That's a good, being in the presence of a newborn is a good example. And the reason why it's so easy with the newborn is because the newborn has not developed an ego to combat your ego. And so that's why it's so easy to let the guards down and just be present with that incredible beauty. Okay. So when you release the want, the egoic wants, the more the divinity is just laying there underneath. It's like you've got an ugly ego covering over everything that's beautiful, and you release it, and what's left is wonderful. Does that make sense? And so I want you to understand that because the ego is all about fixing, right? And so the ego is going to listen to this, and your mind's going to think of like, oh, I'm so messed up. Like, how do you make traffic wonderful? You release the want for control, and you realize that what is okay. And you'll be able to make it work no matter what, Like if you have to apologize if you're in traffic and you want a lot of control, right? You just want to fix this. And I wish that I could go tell the people that got in an accident, drive carefully. Look what you did to everybody, right?
Really, how do you fix it? You fix it by doing what you would do if you were angry. Like I mean,
What?
well, this is what I mean. So like, what would you actually do? So if you would get out of the car and go yell at somebody, is that really going to help?
That you're not going to.
No, you're
gonna
not.
sit
No,
there
you're
and
not
be-
going to. But if you're thinking, oh, I'm so mad, like, oh, I should have left earlier. I'm going to call my boss and like make up this horrible excuse or whatever. Change that all. You can do all of those actions. Do them from love. Like maybe take the same steps that will help you actually get to what you're looking for. So if you need to leave early, then acknowledge that from a space of
hold on.
peace.
What we're talking about here is releasing the wants.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the only thing, I mean, you're going to sit in that traffic whether you're mad and want to control or not. So what if you let go of the want for control? What would you feel instead? You know, I mean, Jeff gets a little frustrated with me sometimes because he really doesn't like traffic. And I'm actually like, I used to have a lot of road rage, and I've done a lot of Sedona method. And so it doesn't bother me anymore because I've done some exercises to release my want for control. And I don't care because we're going to have traffic anyway. And so I'll enjoy some music or enjoy a good audiobook and learn something.
I'm a little bit more of an aggressive driver. So that's where my want to control comes up, because I'm thinking, well, what we could do differently is if I was driving, then I would get us there 30 seconds faster.
30 seconds faster, right? So shall we dig into the practical exercises? Okay. All right. The first thing is to know that your ego has a personality and tendencies, and your ego very much identifies with your wanting. Okay, that's why the exercises are so useful, because, and what I mean by your ego identifies with your wanting is that you're so used to it that you think that that's who you are, and you're not. Because as soon as you let go, what's left over is who you really are. Does that make sense? And your ego will really try to convince you that you should want whatever the ego is wanting. You should want security because legitimately you're going to go bankrupt, next week if you don't do something. The wanting never serves. Does that make sense? Like if I'm at risk of going bankrupt, my finance, guy says you're going to have to file bankruptcy next week, probably, with the way things are. Like, my wanting security doesn't empower me to do anything that's useful. All it does is keep me in this icky scarcity energy that keeps me small and keeps me in lack. Does that make sense? Like the things that I might have to do is I might have to file bankruptcy, or maybe I could go and borrow some money from a relative or whatever. But the actions aren't empowered by my lack. Does that make sense to you? So here's what you do. And this is going to be so simple that your ego is going to throw a fit and say that would not work for me, right? Because I'm separate, because my problems are so intense that can never work for me. So I want you to get your oil out, your releasing oil. I'm going to use lemon, liquid sunshine. Oh, that's good. Bring it on, Amber says. Okay. Now, oils are powerful. Oils are not part of the Sedona method, but we get to cheat because we have these awesome catalysts for releasing. Okay. And put your palms down for a second. You're not smelling the oil, would you? And I want you to put yourself in a situation that had high emotion recently. Okay? And actually, to make it simple, let's do a doTERRA situation. Whether it was setting goals and you felt sinking in your gut because you're like, ugh, I don't like setting goals because I don't think I'll actually achieve it. Or whether it was Kathleen's example, you want to share, but you're worried that people won't, approve of you. But put yourself in a situation where you had intense emotion. Could you welcome that emotion up into your awareness just for a minute, because the awareness will be useful for us, okay? Now ask yourself, is that want for control, want for love and approval, want for security and survival, or want for separation? All right. Could you welcome that want up into your awareness? And here's the magic question. Could you let go of just the wanting it? And put your oils up to your nose now and take a deep breath in and exhale. And ask yourself, could you let go of wanting it? Now, sometimes when you consciously say, okay, it would be nice to let go, but you have a ton of resistance, the next question is, could you welcome up any resistance that comes with it? Okay. And if you could answer yes to that, then just ask yourself, could you let go of the resistance? And then go back to the first question. Could you welcome up whatever want came up in the situation? And could you let go of just the wanting it? Now open your eyes again. And that was really simple, and that's really what it is. Now you can combine a few questions to, it's kind of like Jeffrey and I call it negotiating with the ego, like almost like tricking the ego to let go of what's not really serving. But the reason why I said, could you let go of just the wanting it, is you don't ever actually have to let go of love. In fact, the reason why wanting love is so stupid is because love is embedded in every molecule of everything that exists in this physical world. That's why wanting love is so dumb, because you can go into nature and you can look at a waterfall and you can see majesty and divinity shooting down that waterfall, because that's how much love there is in this world. And you can go to a senior home and you can look at a worn, weathered, war veteran that served their country, and you can see the love that is unfolding from that being. And with a baby, and with your mate, even when you're not resisting in separation from your mate, right? There is love in everything, and it's just, so the question is just, could you just let go of the wanting it? Because the wanting it is your ego's trick of keeping yourself in scarcity, because that gives the ego a really strong identity. But when you let go of the wanting, what's left over again is what you really are, which is an incredible, worthy being of love. And that's where you summon the miracles, and that's where you connect with people when you're sharing doTERRA, and that's where you experience richness in your marriage or your partnership or whatever, or with the family relationship. Okay, so let's do, could somebody just give us an example of a situation that would have a really strong wanting, and we could workshop that together? You don't need to give us a big story. You can just give us a simple example of where you had some high, intense emotions, and we'll workshop to figure out what want is there, and then we'll do the exercise together to release the wanting. I know I'm asking people. Go ahead, Cassie.
All right. So mine is, anytime I think about needing to expand my network to enroll people, I get so much anxiety about even having to leave my house and talk to people.
Okay, good.
I love this. This is a great example because it can seem really complex, right? Mm-hmm. Like there could be a few wants tied into that.
Yeah, and just, the ego is complex and the true self is always very simple. Mm-hmm. Okay, so walk us through a little bit about, like, we need to discover, first of all, which want Cassie is experiencing. Do you know off the top of your head? Okay.
I'm thinking it's more so want of approval, but I mean a bunch of other ones really could tie into it. So
yeah, I see it tying in, a want for approval, a want for safety and security in a paycheck, right? Like really wanting the end result of having a network with people so that you can grow your doTERRA business and have more income. I
love that you brought that up, because you guys, the want that lies underneath, remember, again, this is super subconscious for most of us, okay? If Cassie's primary want is want for a paycheck and financial security, and going out and networking would legitimately be something that would be a super catalyst for her business and her paycheck, her ego is going to do a really good job of utilizing that want for security to keep her scared and not do the actions that will actually change her experience. Does that make sense? Because the ego's job is self-preservation. So it's going to kick that want for security right in, and that manifests as the feelings of anxiety. Same thing with the wanting love and approval. And the fact that that's what came to your mouth first probably gives us the idea. It's probably an indicator that it's the right one for you, okay? And it could be a few things, but the wanting approval, wanting love from other people. Kat, do you mind if I be a little vulnerable in front of everyone and share some of our back history, Cassie, why you might experience that?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so Cassie and I, our dad left when we were little. Cassie was a baby and I was 3.5. That's one of my first childhood memories. I actually remember standing in my crib crying, and as a baby, basically felt what was going on. And I very much adopted, and I've never talked to Cassie about this, but I adopted this belief that I'm not good enough, and if I were good enough, he would have stuck around. That would absolutely stimulate a want for love because I'm not good enough, so I don't have love. So now I must want it because I lack it. And a situation like that early on in life is a great thing to help create the egoic identity that I want love and approval. I'm always in lack. I'm always wanting people to think good of me. I'm always wanting people's good opinion because that's who I am. If I want it, maybe I'll get it and that will, but it's a never ending want. It's a never ending, it's always in lack. Does that make sense? So if Cassie has that, if that's kind of her ego's like best want, then totally in your heart, you feel a concave experience where it's not your heart radiating love. It's your heart in concave mode where it's like, ugh, I'm not enough, so I must always be wanting love because I don't have enough love. And so the idea of going and networking with people, ugh, right? Like it feels like you wouldn't want to risk the rejection. Is that kind of what it feels like? Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so whip out an oil. And let's ask ourselves, go ahead and close your eyes because everybody, if you've experienced any situation where you're afraid that people will reject you for sharing doTERRA, let's just bring that in. Let's bring that situation to your awareness. Get that image clear in your mind, okay? And it could be a specific situation that could be very useful to work with. Get the situation where you feared rejection, where you feared not having people's approval or them not giving, having a good opinion of you. Could you welcome the want of approval up into your awareness, just the feeling of wanting it? Now, as you just welcome the feeling up, a lot of us do just spontaneous releasing. You just spontaneous release because you've welcomed it up. So you're not, keeping it tied down in your gut or in your chest or your heart. Next, take a deep breath in, and could you let go of the want? Could you let go of wanting approval? Give yourself just a moment to experience that release. Now, if you feel stuck still, could you welcome up any resistance to letting go of wanting approval? Could you welcome that resistance up, the emotional knot? Could you welcome the resistance up to your awareness? Just be aware of it. Allow any spontaneous releasing to happen. And now could you let go of resisting this? Deep breaths are very useful, and inhaling your oils is very useful here. Now let's go back to the wanting. Could you let go again of wanting the love and approval of that person or these people? Now here's the test to see if you've adequately released the wanting. Do you have only love for these people or this person left over? I'll ask that question again, because what happens when you release the wanting is what's really you is what's left over, right? And you are a being of love. So if you've released the wanting of love, what's left over is just love for the person. Go ahead and open your eyes, and I want to help you understand what I mean by this. So last night I actually shared the business with a friend. I was texting him, and this is someone that actually enrolled with oils a long time ago. And it's our friend Abram. And when we signed him up before, I had a lot of wanting. And for me, it was want for approval and want for security. Because if he said no or wasn't interested, it would jumble my security and my ability to be safe. That's what my wanting was. This was 3 years ago that we signed him up. Well, last night I texted him and asked him if he'd be open to looking into our business, because a lot of qualities would be great. And I felt a little bit of that come up again. So I did this exercise. I asked, what want is here? It was want for security. Because if he rejects me, I'm not safe, right? And I let go of the wanting. And all I felt afterward was, I'm safe no matter what he says. It's okay. And I also did a little bit of wanting, releasing want for approval. Like what if he thinks I'm out to get him or trying to get him to do something? What if he has a bad opinion of me? And when I released the wanting, all that was left over was compassion for this other human being. Is that fascinating to you? I want you to, for those of you that are married or in a partnership, I want you to imagine how powerful this can be in your relationships. Or those of you that have relationships, so everybody, okay? If you have a cousin or a sister or a friend that you maybe have, a tussle with here and there, letting go of the wanting, and what's left over is knowing that everything is okay, the safety is there, or what's left over when you let go of the wanting approval is just love for that other being. Do you get how powerful this is, you guys? So you can do this with people. You can definitely do it with situations. So goals is a very powerful one, and we're going to do the exercise with goals right now. Kathleen said she had the but word come up, which is separation. Yes, exactly. Your ego is going to be so good at convincing you that, but this is why I exercise, right?
Hey, real quick, I just want to address this, and I know we're getting really close to an hour. So the answers to those questions of, can I let this go? Can I release this? The answer doesn't have to be yes. The answer can be no. The point here is that we're acknowledging, we're creating awareness on this. And typically, if the answer is no, you've created an awareness and you're going to have a spontaneous release.
Yep.
The point is that we have a willingness. We don't have to be perfect. We have a willingness to let this go, to see how it was no longer serving us and to move past it. And so when we ask ourselves that question, can I welcome up this feeling? Well, can you welcome it up? You can if you want to, right? You just sit in the feeling. Can I let this go? Maybe no. Maybe I am so mad or hurt that I can't let this go right now.
That's okay.
But you've acknowledged it. You brought it up. You acknowledged it. And then you can go through the process again. And maybe next time the question is, can you let go a teeny tiny bit? Do you have a willingness? And maybe the answer will be, yeah, I can let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Or I can at least have a desire, having a willingness.
Yep. Cassie and I have a situation that's very, a really emotionally, it's a heartbreaking family feud that's been going on for almost 6 years now, with our dad and his life partner, his girlfriend. And I've done the Sedona method probably, I would say 500 times, a lot on the situation. And it's been life-saving, literally, because my ego was in control mode and attack mode at times, and like cower, like I feel so damaged and hurt by this mode a lot of times, where I'm wanting safety, I'm wanting love because I don't feel it from them. And these exercises where I've been able to be conscious and pause, take some breaths, use an oil, and just let go of the wanting, their approval. Oh my gosh. And I've had to do it lots of times, and there's been layers, and I've let go as I've been ready, but thank goodness for it. So we'd love to show you what this looks like doing the Sedona method on your goals, okay? So bring up a doTERRA goal that you have, okay? Short-term, long-term, whatever it is, okay? And preferably, and it can be anyone. It can be one that you're feeling really heavy about, or one that you're just super excited about, okay? Because even if you're really excited about it, the fact that you're an ego because you have a physical brain, like there's probably something you can release on it. So get your goal in your mind, okay? Really specific, not I want to grow or I want to make money, okay? A specific one, please.
Like I want to have 2 enrollments by the end of the month.
Yeah, or I want to be an elite, or I want to be whatever rank, or yeah, I want my, okay? Now so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to frame it properly. So it's not I want to have 2 enrollments by the end of the month. It's I am enrolling 2 people a month, okay? Or I'm enrolling 2 people this month. Present tense, and as if it's already happening, okay? So, and then have a time attached to it as well. So this one did by default. I am enrolling 2 people this month, okay? Or if it's a rank, it's I am elite by December 31st, okay? On or before December 31st, okay? So you framed it right. Now, go ahead and you can keep your eyes open, close them if you want, but hold that goal in your mind and notice any emotions that are attached to that goal, right? And we're actually going to go through all 3 of the main wants, the control, approval, and security, all right? Because normally you don't have want for separation with a goal. It's not really common. So could you welcome up, do you have any want for control with this goal? With the doTERRA one, especially if you're working with the downline, it can be easy to want to control. You want to make sure your builders do what they're supposed to do. make sure everyone, why aren't you on the team call, right? Okay. Can you welcome up any want for control? Could you allow it to be for just a moment? And could you let it go? Could you welcome up any other want for control that you associate with this goal? Whew. And could you let that go? If there's any resistance resistance to letting it go, could you welcome up the resistance and allow that resistance to just be? Could you let it go? And now ask yourself the test, and you can write this down if you want. There's a simple test to see if you've let go of each want. The test to this letting go of want for control is, could you allow it to be exactly as it is right now? Just in this moment. Okay? No buts attached, just in this moment. Could you allow that goal to be as it is? If the answer is yes, then you're good. And if the answer is no, then you can go back and release want for control more. Let's move on to the next one. Having that goal in your awareness, in your mind's eye, do you sense any want for approval? Do you need your upline to approve of you? And that's when you want to achieve the goal. Does your goal involve people, but you're scared they're going to reject you and say no to you? That's want for approval, want for love. Could you welcome that want for approval into your awareness? Could you just allow yourself to feel it for a minute? And could you let it go? Could you let that want go? Could you welcome up any other want for approval associated with this goal? Man, that's a heavy want. Could you let that want for approval go? And the test to see if you've if you've effectively let go of this want is, do you have only sense of love remaining for the people involved, or for the goal itself, for the the image of having achieved the goal? Love, loving yourself, having achieved this goal. Okay. Let's move on to the third one. Holding this goal in your awareness, could you welcome up any want for security, safety, or survival? Right? Do you have any feeling of being threatened when you feel this goal, or when you think about this goal? That's a good way to tell if that's your want, if you feel threatened in any way. Could you let that want for security or safety go? Whew. Could you welcome up any other want for security? Could you let it go? And the test to see, how you've released this is, do you have only a sense of safety as you think about this goal now? Now go ahead and open your eyes. And what I'd like you to be aware of, and as we're wrapping this up, is know this. All the wants are just different flavors of resistance. Okay? So in your life, in your doTERRA business, you've got people involved, you've got targets, you've got actions. And as long as you have resistance between you and those other things, how do you expect to work with it? How do you expect to, have a beautiful influence, to be able to have your love received, to be able to be of, genuine service? Let's say that I have a sick neighbor, and I think she'd love some On Guard and some rosemary oil, right? And I want to go and share with her. That's part of me. But the other part of me is my ego that wants approval. And I'm so scared of her thinking, he's just trying to sell me stuff, right? It's going to be very hard for her to receive my love, because I've got that resistance. It's this icky friction energy between us, because I have that want for her approval. And, if I'm in that, I'm definitely not pouring love out to her when she's in need. Does that make sense? So you release the wanting, and there's just, now you're in a state of allowing, wanting, allowing the miracles to happen, allowing you to connect with other people, allowing you to be good enough for your goals. Okay. Do you guys have any questions or any thoughts that come to your mind as we've experienced this? Or what did you experience? I'd love to hear that.
I would like to share.
Yeah, please.
When we were doing the releasing the sense of approval, I was releasing that and smelling my oil and letting that go. And I actually had the feeling of pure love. And then you said right after that, do I only have a sense of pure love left? I was like, that's exactly what filled my mind when I released that was love. And that was the result. And it was beautiful. Thank you for that. This is mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible how simple it is too, because again, your ego is complex, and so it wants to keep you in mess, right? And when you release it, what's left over is the simple divinity that you are, which is love. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, Jeff had to excuse himself because he's going off to interview his replacement for Brilliant Solutions. So, we'll excuse him. Any other experiences or thoughts?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because my resistance was the same thing. It was for the approval of people are going to think I'm crazy and all they want me to do is, I'm contacting them only because I want to sell them stuff and all that stuff. And then there was really no control involved to a big extent to the goal. But it was the approval and the security but the security, what was interesting was it was more of like myself, like knowing my resistance that was in the approval that I know would stop me from reaching my goal. And therefore I was self-inflicting that insecurity. Does that make sense?
Yes, self-inflicted.
Yeah. And so it was because of the approval, I was going to keep myself from doing it because I know that I would make myself like not have money or something, because I would stop myself already from achieving my goal because of the approval situation. So it was like, oh my God, I'm like, I'm self-sabotaging in this like circular motion. And like, so it was like really interesting to see and kind of hard to wrap my head around it at that moment and kind of stop it.
Yes, I love your awareness. And it's fun to be able to just observe it because because when you observe it, you realize like from out of your ego, you're the observer, not your ego, and you're like, that's so silly. Right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts? Okay, well, I just posted the rest of the tests. Okay, so for control, approval, and security. Again, it's not common to like when you're releasing on goals, it's not typical to need to release the want for separation, and usually the want for separation disappears if you release the first three. Okay, but if you feel a lot of that want for separation, totally invite yourself to be step aside. I mean, and if this is with the person, how beautiful to say, hey, I want to come from a space of love and I'm not there right now. I'm going to step aside for a day or an hour or 5 minutes or whatever, and you do some releasing and then come back from a space of love. Like you'll be in so much better service. Right. And so the call to action, you guys, is there's not a right or wrong way or even a right pacing to do these exercises. The call to action is to start using these. But particularly, I'd like to invite you, because this is a doTERRA team call, we'd like to invite you to do these releasing on your doTERRA goals. Write down your top 3 to 5 doTERRA goals, okay, on paper. And, you want to write them down because everyone knows that psychologically that's what, makes goals more effective. And then do the releasing exercises on those goals. Because again, you are here to serve. You are here to create incredible things for you, for your family, and for the people that that are involved along the process. And as long as you've got, this is magical because this wanting is in large part of what's kept you from it. And I'm going to end with just a brief story. I've thought since I read this book that my 2 big wants were want for control, because historically I've been a very impatient person, which is want for control, and want for approval because I've had a lot of self-worth issues, largely in part because of what I shared with you from mine and Cassie's childhood. Well, a palm reader, a lady that's like versed in the science of fingerprints, read mine in just fingerprints, and she said, "Oh, your life lesson is safety and security." And I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, like your life lesson that is meant to turn into your strength is, just feeling like you're not safe, you're not secure." And I went back to all the doTERRA things that I've released on and all the relationship and family things I've been releasing on for the past few years since I've known how to do this. And I've never really done a lot of releasing safety because I never thought that was my issue. And all of a sudden I realized that this anxious feeling that I have pop up spontaneously in my chest often, that I thought was want for approval, it wasn't. It was a fear that I wouldn't be safe if I didn't succeed in doTERRA, or if I didn't have someone liking me, or someone loyal to me and my family, things like that. And I've been releasing that want for safety in my doTERRA business, and my interactions have changed dramatically. You guys might find this shocking, but it wasn't until 1 week ago that I had my first experience of enrolling someone without having anxiety. Does that surprise you guys? For my first almost 3.5 years in doTERRA, literally every enrollment that I've done, I felt anxiousness. Like part of me was like, thinking, wow, they're going to love the Natural Solutions Kit. They need, 90% of what's in it. And the other 10%, they just don't know they need it. And at the same time, like when I'd get done with the meeting, I'd be like, oh, like that was exhausting because I was like trying so hard to make sure it's a positive experience and that it's what they want it to be. And even when I'd go enroll them on the computer, I have this fear that their credit card wouldn't go through, or that, they'd be disappointed when they get their kid in 3 days and change their mind. And literally every single enrollment, as soon as I realized I can release want for security in these situations, I did it. And last week, I had my first enrollment ever in doTERRA where all I felt was, this is cool. Like, and I'm happy for this person. And I love this person. And I felt safe signing them up. And it was, you guys, it's really weird to me that this didn't happen sooner, but you learn when you're ready to learn, right? So we're really excited for you to implement these tools. So write down your top three to five doTERRA goals. And then of course you're more than welcome to implement this into any space in your life. Okay. But do these releasing exercises. Just, December is one of the best months to rank advance, because doTERRA does a 200 PV frankincense special. And for you new people, any 200 PV order, new LRP, doesn't matter, gets a free frankincense. And that's in addition to the product of the month too. And all the other perks that people get. And so because of that, doTERRA December historically is one of the biggest volume months out of the entire year. So great month to rank to silver or elite or whatever your goal is. But let's start with this. Write it on paper what your goals are and do some releasing on it. And then if you like to share some experiences, post it in the Facebook group, because I don't know if you guys realize how empowering, how powerful your breakthroughs are to each other, and to me, but we all benefit. Any last thoughts as we close? Okay, well, friends, love you all. Thank you so much. You are champions, and you are worthy of every dream you have and that you're here to create. So we'll go ahead and post the recording too for all of your teammates that didn't get to join the call live. Thanks for sticking on longer. I know this is a longer topic. We went way past the normal 30 minutes, but I think it's very powerful. So encourage your team members that couldn't be on live to watch this recording and benefit from it. And well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm grateful for you all. Love you all.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.